Okay. Noam?
Thank you very much. המצגת היא בעברית, אבל לדבר באנגלית, אז יהיה יותר קל גם לתרגום. אני פעם אחת כבר ראיתי הרצאה שלי ביוטיוב עם קול של אישה, וזה נראה קצת מוזר. אז ברשותכם אני מדבר באנגלית. I will speak in English, even though the presentation, the PowerPoint, some of it is in Hebrew. The subject of my talk today is what can be done and how to do it. I think we have a lot of talks yesterday and today about the problems we are facing. I have a problem with the message, but this is not the subject of this workshop. I will discuss what I'm doing myself for the past 4 years in new media diplomacy. You see here on the top right, Asper Institute of New Media Diplomacy. We received a nice contribution from an Asper family from Canada to do new media diplomacy and social networks. And we have been doing it over the past 4 years, and I will talk about it at the end. I wrote here state diplomacy and social networks in the era of self-mass communications. We are undergoing today a big revolution, and I'm an academic in communications. The change of the social networks is changing many of the paradigms and theories that we have been teaching our students over the past 50 years about how to create public opinion. Today, social networks is creating a fundamental change in this phenomena, and we are still studying it. But I think when we talk about new media diplomacy, we have to refer to that. Just briefly, there's a national brand index. There are a lot of organizations today who study how nations are being perceived in the world. There is a national brand index in position in the UK who is doing the survey since 2005, and they positioned us. They did a survey, but it's a BBC survey over 28 countries, 1,000 people in each country. How do you perceive? Do you consider the influence of these countries to be positive and negative? And as you can see, we're at the bottom of 50 states. We are at the bottom. We are together with North Korea, with Pakistan, with Iran. And the question on the blue is mainly positive. The white is neither or neutral. And on the right side is people who view us as mostly negative. And the white here, I don't know if it happens, there's a saying by the guy who runs this branding survey saying that since he started doing this national branding studies, he have never seen Israel being ranked so low in every category. This is on missing here on the white space here. So this, I listened yesterday to Igal Caspio of the Foreign Office and said everything was rosy. And this picture paints a completely different picture. Of course, we are all aware that we are in a very serious problem. But we can look at it and say oy vey, or we can look at it, and I try to do what we call data visualization, and I just read it in a different way. The same. And here we see three crowds. On the right side, on the left side, we see those who support us. It's your left, actually. On the right, on the green, the red are people who view us as negative, and in the middle there are 31%. People were talking about the people who are indifferent. 31% of the world of these people who participate in the survey don't have either negative or positive opinion about Israel, and this is a very, very big crowd. And you can see this picture as half. You can see the cup half full, because we can, of course, we must strengthen the green crowd, which are really for us. This is the virtual state that Professor Sieb was talking about. This is the green crowd, and we can try to do whatever we can to convert the gray crowd towards us, and they are open to the open, and that's what we are doing for the past 4 years in the Asper Institute. We are targeting this gray crowd as well as for the green crowd. The red crowd are very important to us. I will refer to this later. So the picture can be viewed as half full. Dr. Aviram mentioned Ido Aharoni, who is in charge, who is now in the consul in New York, who did the branding of Israel survey in 2006. They did a very clever study. They took 50 groups in America of non-Jewish people, and they asked them, you come to an island, and in the island there are houses. Each house is one nation, and there is a party. Which party do you want to go? And then they were asked, how do you view the interior, the decor of the party that you joined? None wanted to join the Israeli party, but of course the people who were behind the survey knew that this is what we are interested, so they found a way to somehow get them to the Israeli party. And they were asked, okay, now you're in the Israeli party, how do you view the decor, the people? And the picture was very, very sad. It was 50 different groups in the United States, non-Jewish people. It was completely homogeneous result. They view us as unfriendly, people who don't like to host people. They could not visualize Israel in colors. They support us on the political. When we are vis-a-vis the Muslims, they support us. But they will not visit Israel. They will not buy Israeli products, and they would be very easy to sway to the red crowd using correct messages like
from
civil rights.
Sorry, from the red crowd.
Join the red crowd.
No, the red is the unfriendly.
Yes. So these people who view us as unfriendly and still support us politically vis-a-vis the Arabs could be very, very easily reached by the wrong people and being swayed to join the red crowd. Okay. So this was a survey done by the Israeli Foreign Office, which really showed a very, very sad picture. Now these are two questions. It's in Hebrew. The big question is, should the government be involved in public diplomacy? The answer is yes. The second question, can a government alone be effective in public diplomacy in networks? The answer is definitely not. And I think people here yesterday spoke about, wait a minute, I think I've jumped. Wait.
Backwards.
Oh, it's still here. The answer is no, because government activity is viewed as propaganda. And in doing new media diplomacy in networks, there are certain rules which you have to follow, which I will outline in the next slide. The government cannot behave according to these rules that are a must if you want to be active in social networks. In order to be active in social networks, you have to create a lot of content. The networks require content, require a lot of content, huge amount of content. They need creative content, and the government can never generate so much content to put on Flickr at YouTube. Second reason is you need to develop an internet identity. If you want to be active, even if you're a government, you have to develop, and you want to reach people, you want to participate in conversation on Facebook, you have to create an internet identity. For you, Dr. Eliram, I would have suggested, listen, you want to be active in Facebook? Open your own file. Tell about your family, tell about what you like, what you dislike, so people will get to know you. Then you can be more effective. Without an internet identity, you cannot really be effective in social networks. And thirdly, you have to be interactive. You have to take part. A lot of speakers mentioned here before that being active in social networks is participating in a conversation. Professor Shiki said it is far less important to have access to information. It's more important to have access to a conversation. Because in a conversation, you can reach people, you can convince them, and in order to be effective in the internet world, you have to be interactive, you have to respond, you have to tweet, you have to retweet, you have to answer. So these are three basic rules that you have to follow to be active. One is developing a lot of content, using what we call wisdom of the crowd. Secondly, is develop an internet identity. I will give you an example in a minute. And thirdly, you have to be interactive. Government people cannot do it on themselves. Using the internet, what we call wisdom of the crowd, you can see here a lot of people helping Da Vinci paint the Mona Lisa. By employing huge crowds, crowds have creativity. What we call wisdom of the crowd, people are creative. A lot of young people in Israel and in the Jewish world, in the virtual state, of Israel that are spread around the world, people can create very clever, very interesting, unique content. You have to do that. And an example of an internet identity that I suggested Dr. Eliram to do, the Queen Rania of Jordan, she won the YouTube prize of 2008 for being very innovative. She is very clever in the internet. She set up this website, and she's being very active in discussing the most serious problems of the Muslim world. Women rights, you name it, she asks people to send her stories, she puts it on her website, she reacts to it, and she is a very, very well-known personality in social networks. Yesterday I heard in the news that she's not being very active today, very popular today by the Bedouin tribes who don't, because she's half Palestinian, she's a Palestinian. So today with these big changes, it is beginning to be a problem that the king is married to a Palestinian, but she's an example of how how a government person, if you look at the website of the foreign minister of Finland, he's on a bike with a hamlet and said, join me. If you look at the website of our foreign minister, after half a second you will stay away from it because it's very unfriendly and you don't want to stay there for 1 minute. Our foreign minister doesn't understand the web at all. In other lectures, I use these two pictures of Rania, the foreign minister of Finland, and Lieberman, and the whole crowd just burst laughing. It's sad. My answer is government cannot be effective alone, being in new media diplomacy. They must have a mediator. And the mediators are NGOs. We heard yesterday about some NGOs. Academic institutions like my institution, we come to the government, we tell them, listen, we in the IDC in Herzliya, we have 1,500 students from 60 countries who study 3 years in the IDC in English. We tell them, listen, we have this resource, use it. I met with Dr. Eliram over a year and a half ago in my office. I understand he's been very busy, he doesn't have time to call me again. But we have also proposed the Foreign Ministry with a very low budget proposal what we can do to help you, government, because in IDC we declare we are a Zionist university. We are not shy of it. I received phone calls by journalists who said, wait a minute, academia and Zionism doesn't go well together. We train IDF people in new media for the past 3 years. Every officer training that the IDF, Aliza knows about it, before they finish their officer training, they come for a one-day conference in our school, in our institute, and we teach them about new media diplomacy. Ask Dover Tzahal, he's very familiar with this. But we send the government, listen, we have this resource, forget it. We don't get a response. We continue to do it ourselves. But this is you know, NGOs are it could be very helpful, like we heard yesterday, but I call new media diplomacy the Israeli nightmare in new media diplomacy, because, for example, we know about the story about Eden Abajil, the lady soldier who put her picture in Facebook about how she's near Palestinian prisoners, and talking about traditional media. Traditional media today is being fed by the social media. The traditional media is looking for content, and the social media provides them with a lot of content. And this Eden Abajil received full stories in CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, of course, Guardian. So today there's really no separation, and the new media, the traditional media is really being fed a lot by stories that originate in the face of in social media. So social media, we had another soldier dancing near another prisoner. It's also made big news. It does a lot of damage to us, but this we cannot prevent. What we can do is try to counter, at least be involved and be active, because the enemy knows very well how to use this new media against us. We have proposed the government what can be done, what should be done. We propose to set up what we call New Media Operations Center. And this new media operations center should be composed of several units. I will go them. One of them is what we call content monitoring unit. It has to be a full group of people who would sit and monitor what is listening. Today Professor Karl talked about new media diplomacy, and he said one thing you have to do is to listen. We need a monitoring unit that will sit and will study what is being said about Israel by our friends and by our foes, and get all the information, identify what's happening in the network, and give it to the other units that I will now mention. A second unit is a distribution unit. Today, distribution of content over social network is a very, very clever business, very professional business. Today, what we call automatic gatekeepers. Today, you get to be exposed according to the number of links that people refer to your content. And people specialize in what we call search engine optimization. You have to know how to get your content, how to create links, how to use your green crowd to help you create more and more links. So this is a very professional matter. You have to create tools that will get your content across. There is a beautiful example in Israel called Megaphone. It's an Israeli startup who provided free of charge the foreign ministry with a tool that if somebody is telling a negative story about Israel in the network, the Megaphone people they have about 30,000 people enrolled in the crowd, and they immediately react to it. And by this link economy, it's been very effective to create crowds to take off negative stories from YouTube or to react to negative stories about Israel. So the Megaphone is just one example of many that can be done to promote your business. So distribution of content is extremely important and extremely professional, and you have to use the right people to do that. Third unit is social network unit. Social network unit, their job is to identify, the Pareto principle, that 20% of something creates 80% of the effect. We need to identify, this social network unit has to identify which are the focal social network points that we need to establish a relationship with to distribute our content and to create and to interact with them to create ongoing conversation. Then you have a journalism unit. You have to identify journalists. Today journalists and bloggers operate in networks. You have to be aware, you have to have intelligence, you have to know what are the journalist networks, how to reach them. So this unit has to do with that. It's also quite a professional job. And then you have a central coordination unit, which has to identify what are the goals. What are the goals that we set for ourselves? And this unit has to be in charge of monitoring, studying, following what all the other units are doing. And I'll go back in a minute to this. This new media operations center, you cannot establish it during a war or cost-led. It has to operate over time, and I think it was mentioned yesterday, to be effective in new media diplomacy, it has to be done over time. You have to develop the internet identity, you have to interact. You cannot do it during a time of crisis. We have to do it, and this kind of operation needs about 30 people. And I suggested to the government, let's set up this kind of setup. It's an open question where each unit should be. Some of the units can be in the Foreign Office, other units can be in NGOs, other units can be in academic institution who will be willing to sacrifice itself, like we do, on behalf of Israel. But this is an open question, is where to put each of these units, but without, and you don't need even the budget of F-16, one F-16 to set up this. But if Israel will not do that, we shall lose this war, and we're losing the war, as I showed you. And this has to be done over time. It has to be budgeted. And Aviram, I leave it in your laps. What the government is doing, and by the way, Mr. David Saranga, who was in charge of he was a consulate in New York, and then he was in charge on Israeli advocacy in social networks. He was on 2 years of absence from the Foreign Office, and I employed him in Asper Institute. He worked with us. He gave workshops when he was away from the Foreign Office. And I know from him, he did all what you're seeing here. Israeli Foreign Office is active in blogs, MySpace, YouTube, Facebook, Wikipedia. He set up the first press conference in Twitter. Great, we got stories, and he was very proud. He got a story in New York Times. Israel was the first to do a press conference in Twitter. Beyond this first recognition of being first in a social network, nothing happened. So the Israeli Foreign Office have tried, they are aware. I heard from Shai Tias before, they understand the problem, but they don't do much to overcome it. So this is what they have done. The advocacy ministry have, of course, done the Masbirim Israel, and they set up this blog with answers for Israelis. They try to use the wisdom of the crowd, so Israelis who go abroad will know answers to questions. Also, it was not very effective because it's considered government propaganda. Even by the Israeli public, it's considered government propaganda. Even people who support the policies of the government, it's still considered government propaganda. They invested millions in this. It was not very effective instead of giving it to us. So it was not very effective. IDF have been very active in Twitter, in blogs, and to show you one example that the world is not really against us. And I think Dr. Gilson mentioned it. The world is interested in story. If we Israelis come up with good stories, the international press will tell it. And what we did in Haiti with IDF, it received world recognition. In CNN, in other, this is the Twitter by IDF, the IDF blog. It received a lot of publicity in traditional press because Israel was doing something good. It was a good story, even though soldiers in uniform, it received very, very good recognition. What we are doing in IDC, in the Asper Institute, 2 years ago we put the site coolisrael.com where we put stories about Israeli culture, about tattoos, and about graffiti, and all sorts of interesting cultural stories, but there was not much success to it because it was Cool Israel. Then this year we have completely changed the policy and we set up a very, very effective new website called nocameras.com. And we want, the idea of this website is to show the world Israel is not just a problem, Israel has solutions and the slogan is local solutions to global problems. We took 30 students, volunteers, and we divided them into 4 groups. One group is getting Israeli stories, innovation solutions to health problems. Another group is to ecological problems like water. Another to lifestyle. And the 4th group is technology. And these students put stories every week about Israeli innovations that solve problems that the world is facing. This is one part of the equation. The other part of the equation, we are now building, quite successfully, a network of about 2,000 journalists. The target audience of this is journalists, because journalists, I know that I teach them, most of them are quite lazy. They want stories, hopefully well-cooked stories, but we are now we have journalists from Finland who is interested in health issues. He knows, we send a newsletter also, he knows that he can go to nocameras.com once a week, and he will get an interesting story about health. And the same, we approach journalists who are we go to niche journalists who are involved in niche, and they draw stories from our website about how Israel is solving the water solution or health, cancer. And the whole idea is to provide, to be the AP for world journalists about how Israelis' innovation solve world problems. We do not deal with Palestinians, we do not deal with conflict, we just show how Israel, the startup nation, can solve problems, and it's being very effective, and I invite you all to help us get more journalists to this website, because I have no illusion that this will not solve Israeli advocacy problems, but it will strengthen our friends. It may gain some friends from the gray crowd. So that I think it's this kind of activities are really called for. So I will be very helpful, very grateful to have your help on this. Finally, just topics for discussion is who should be responsible to set up this media center. The message to the government, which I understand is not is to open door now, forget your desire to have a coherent message. Forget your desire to have one narrative. Yesterday, this journalists were talking about one coherent message. No, we don't need. We don't need one narrative. We have 6 or 7 million narratives, and this is for the social networks. You want many narratives. You want conversations. So for the government, forget about coherent message. The third one is you have to understand that in order to be involved in social networks, you have to go through transformation. You have to change the way you think in the government, in the Foreign Office, in the Masbirim office, and in the government office. You have to change. And lastly, I put you have to draw the line between what is we call diplomacy and what we call hasbara. And I think yesterday was very clever explanation by the journalist saying that hasbara means you apologize and you are trying to be you are more smarter than you because I will explain to you what you stupid didn't understand. So the word hasbara, I agree, is a poor word. So we have to. I think people have to understand. What is the difference between hasbara and diplomacy? There's a huge difference because we talk about diplomacy, we're talking about soft power, we're talking about culture, we're talking about values, and that's where Israel is very strong. So I think it's very important that people understand the difference between hasbara and new diplomacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.